What a topic, right? What's up, Dusk here? So yeah, this is something that I've wanted to talk about recently. How gamers, how we kind of have a tendency to maybe gaslight ourselves and each other a little bit. Now, before we get started, though, I do want to say one thing real quick. Gaslighting can be a pretty heavy and serious topic, but we are not gonna cover any of that stuff. There will be no serious and no heavy. This is gonna be more about just kind of like the little stuff that has to do more with having less fun than we probably could be having. And that's really gonna be the theme of the whole video, is just trying to make things more fun for ourselves, for yourself. And if other people want to join in on that, cool, right? So, to get started, I guess, let's talk about how I kind of like stumbled across the idea or the realization of this and then wanting to talk about it. So, it kind of started, it was months and months ago. It was probably toward the end of 2023, I think it was. I don't even remember which game I was playing, but I do remember that I was playing a game and was doing something, and another player, like an opponent player, was doing something, and I thought it was pretty funny, and I was laughing at it. And chat was like, "Oh man, he's being toxic." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Yeah, that's a toxic thing when players do that." And I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize." And then another, like, it happened again later with another player, and I was like, "Oh, okay, this is the toxic thing." And I'm like, "Okay, they are like doing this on purpose, I guess, to be toxic." And then I was kind of annoyed at it. Now, like, that example right there probably paints a really good picture of exactly what I'm talking about. So this brings us to Dead by Daylight, which I think is the poster child for this sort of behavior, and that is primarily to do with the Survivor Handbook, or the Survival Rule Book. I can't remember what the phrase is. I will say, though, that sort of thing in Dead by Daylight has seemed to have gotten a bit better. And I think that is largely due to the console community. And that is largely due to the fact that console players can't use the chat box at the end of game. And since there are a lot of console players, and typically they can't chat, so people have quit engaging with the chat box at the end of the game. And that cutoff in communication has then acted as insulation to prevent some of this gaslighting, or maybe we should call it pseudo gaslighting, because it's not like, this isn't full blown like the real thing, right? Like, this is definitely like just more like fringe mini edge case stuff. That's why I said no heavy, no serious, right? And so that was I think has played a large part in helping somewhat improve that in the culture of this game, which shows that adding the chat box in the first place was just a bad idea. The fact that it's still there is a bad idea. That chat box probably needs to go, right? Yeah, but anyway, that's probably more of a different video. But yeah, so to get more on the topic, why now? Why am I talking about this now? Well, I ran into an instance where there was a player, and they looked like maybe they were brand new or something, and they ended up right in front of me, and I just decided to target somebody else, right? I was like, well, what? I'm not gonna pick on him, right? And somebody in chat commented like, "Wow, you're a really nice killer for not tunneling." And that wasn't really my goal. Like, that's not what I was thinking. Now, the person who said that in chat, obviously they were trying to like that was intended to be a compliment. Even though it was a compliment, it was still kind of reinforcing that you should or shouldn't play the game in certain ways. So let's go back to the original example where, months and months ago, somebody was like, "Oh, that guy's being toxic," right? And by the way, you see this in a lot of games. This isn't just Dead by Daylight, but again, it's prevalent in Dead by Daylight, and I'm playing Dead by Daylight and other asymmetrical horror games, so to me, this is very relevant, and I think it's probably relevant to most people watching this video, right? So what really happens here is that the more you play a game like Dead by Daylight, the less spooky it gets, and you get acclimated to the horror, and yeah, it's just a little bit more about the fun at that point. And when we forget about the horror and we kind of disengage away from what the game was originally designed for, then we can start to nitpick at it. But then we start trying to find, like, when we run into situations that aren't fun, we start trying to blame other players for making the situations unfun, when it might be that the game is intended to be played that way anyway, or it's just a flawed game mechanic, right? Either way, that's not the other player's fault, right? And depending on how you look at it, it might actually be a pretty fun situation to be in. But if you've convinced yourself that it's toxic, and that word is way overused, and that's probably another video I could talk about. By the way, if you all want more videos on any or all of these topics, you got to let me know in the comments section, because I will absolutely make them. Absolutely. I love talking about this stuff. So yeah, we get a little bent out of shape, and then we see something like, let's say you're a killer main, and you see a survivor flicking their flashlight at you, maybe with a macro, like click, 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 right? And or they're teabagging, and like that's frustrating and it makes you mad, but why? Right? Why does it make you mad? Is there something specifically about the crouch button on the keyboard that just, you really hate it when people press that button? What if instead there was a different button? Let's say it's the P button, and when they press that, they T-pose, and just the word insult appears above their head. Would that also wound your soul? Would you be like, they have pressed the insult button on their keyboard and or gamepad. I am angry. Or would it just be funny to see someone pressing the button and watching them flap into T-pose over and over with insult? The word insult, like a 3D word, just flashing above their head. I personally think it might be hilarious. And it is still quite thematic for an asymmetrical horror game, because what happens in like so many horror movies, and I mean a lot, where you've got the monster, the killer, the whatever, and the movie starts off and a bunch of people get murdered and all this stuff, and they're like, oh, we gotta fight back, and so they set up a trap, and then one of the survivors finds the monster, the killer, and they're like, hey, screw you, monster, to try and get it to chase them so that they can run away and lead them into a trap. And the thing that comes to mind is Freddy vs. Jason, where there's a girl on a boat dock, and spoilers, by the way, if it's an old movie, but spoiler alert anyway. There's a girl on the docks, and she's trying to taunt Freddy. And she's like, hey, butter knives, come and get me. Trying to make fun of his knife hand, right? And that doesn't go according to plan, and she gets the shit murdered out of her. Right? That happens in a lot of stuff. Everything from old school zombie movies to like episodes of Scooby-Doo. But the teabagging specifically people latch onto because that's been ingrained as an insult in gaming culture for a while. Probably Halo, I think, is where that really originated from. But I feel like back in the day in Halo, it was more kind of like for fun trash talk, which you see a lot in the fighting game community, which is literally just part of the fun. If you don't understand that, think about pro wrestling, like The Rock and all those guys, right? They do those little interviews where they just trash talk each other, and they're like, you're going down, and all that jazz. Those guys don't actually hate each other. It's part of the fun, and it's part of the entertainment, right? And that's what a lot of this stuff used to be in gaming culture. But somewhere along the lines, things just got worse and worse and worse. I think, it's like that game of telephone where things get distorted the more, it gets passed on. I think as things have just gotten passed on, some of the context was lost, but the negativity, like the negative implications, stayed around. And that's because we're just hardwired. Like, it's a survival trait to hang on to negativity, because the negative stuff was the stuff that would kill you. So hanging on to that and entrenching that into your memory was very, very important. And so we hang on to that and we latch on to negativity a lot harder than we should. And again, that's a whole nother video, so I'm not going to get into that one either. But, and this is kind of where this comes back to. The point of the video and the point of what I'm trying to say is, I think it's a good idea sometimes to just take a step back and be like, wait, is this really that big of a deal? Is this actually maybe just hilarious and not something that should be making me angry? And I've fallen into this trap too. So don't like this isn't me trying to preach about how wise I am or anything. I've just kind of stumbled upon. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Wait a second. And I just kind of want to share that perspective, right? And that's pretty much it. But I've got one little last twist for the video here, and this is kind of a fun twist. The amount of gaslighting that I basically just did with this video is in itself kind of some light gaslighting, right? Like, you're thinking one way, and I'm trying to convince you that your way of thinking maybe isn't, is flawed in some way, and that you should think this way instead. So at the end of the day, too, and this is the second thing I just want to throw out there, do take a step back and decide for yourself, think things through, because like I said, some things you probably should report. And also, while it is about just trying to make the game more fun for yourself and have a better perspective, sometimes you're just having a bad day. Sometimes maybe you are in a frustrating situation. Maybe the video game has frustrating mechanics that just aren't fun. And if that is genuinely, truly the case, that's worth talking about, but maybe talking about in a more positive light, again, so that we can maybe get the developers to tweak or change things. But, they're going to need to be able to do that confidently. Again, that's probably another video. And yeah, so that's basically it. That's all I wanted to talk about in this video. Thanks for watching. And again, comments. Let me know if you like these kinds of videos. I would love to talk more about this stuff. But I can also get back to just some Dead by Daylight videos and asymmetrical videos, because I love doing videos on builds and stuff like that. And one of the biggest delights I've had coming back to Dead by Daylight is finding out that there's actually build depth now. I just love the asymmetrical genre, and I'm kind of here for all of it. Anyway, I'll go ahead and stop it here. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.